So the next topic is about the hiding all unused fields when we are creating this extract versions. Okay, in this topic, I will also talk about more about while you're extracting, what are the other things you will look at and what are the other options you will find, because we have already discussed about our joins, our relationships. It will be really understandable right now because we have some fields which are related to the storage of the data, and it will be totally understandable if you just look at the options we have right now. And if you just say extract and just say edit, so you will have this pop-up option, right? In this pop-up option, the first one is logical table and the second one is physical table. If you see here, why are we getting this logical table and physical layer is because of relationships. And you can actually decide how the extract should be stored. You can choose to have Tableau store the data in your extract using like two structures. It can be in a logical way, that is the denormalized schema, and the physical way, which is the normalized schema. So the logical tables actually store data using one extract table for one logical table. So physical tables that define a logical table are merged and stored with that logical table. So for example, if a data source was made of a single logical table, the data would be stored in a single table. But if a data source was made of three logical tables, so in that logical tables also, if you have each containing multiple physical tables, the extract data would be stored in three tables, one for each logical table, even if you have a physical table inside the logical table. Select this logical tables whenever you want. You want to limit the amount of data in your extract with additional extract properties like you can do extract filters, you can do aggregations, or you can do top end or other filters which you can denormalize the data. And if you use this option when you extract which contains joins, the joins are applied whenever the extract is created. So if you have like a physical table, like if you are going with our physical table, this stores the data using one extract table for each physical table. Logical tables, even if you have a joint inside a logical table, the entire thing will be considered as one table. But if you have a physical table and if your extract is comprised of tables combining one or more joins and meets this whatever conditions this physical table has, each table will have an extract for each table. Like it stores the data one physical table as a one table. So you have some options whenever you're working with the physical tables. So you have some options like whenever you're using this joins, this join will actually save each table in each format, in each extract, right? So this one will query the joins at the time of a query time, okay? And whenever you're doing this physical table extract, you have some conditions also to actually follow. All join types between the physical tables or equality joins, like is equal. So the data types of the columns used for relationships or joins should be identical, and no incremental refresh configured, no extract filters configured, and no top 10 or sampling is configured for physical tables. You cannot do them with the physical tables whenever you compare it with the logical tables. So whenever the extract is stored in a physical table, you cannot append the data to it. For logical tables, you can't append data to extracts that have one or more logical table. That means you can actually append the data whenever there is a single data model, but when you have one or more logical tables, you can't append data to the extract. So both the logical and the physical table options only affect how the data is in your extract should be stored. So these options do not affect how the tables in your extract are displayed or order of columns, anything. It is not anything related to that. This is all about storing of your tables, how Tableau stores whenever you perform a logical table or whenever you perform a physical table. For example, suppose like your extract is comprised of one logical tables that contains three physical tables, and if you open that extract hyperfile, it is always stored as .hyper format extracted versions, and we can actually configure the default option. For logical tables, you see one table listed on the data source page, but however, if you open the extract using this packaged data source table or data source TDSX file with its corresponding hyperfile, you will see all the three tables because you have some join inside your logical content, right? That's why if you open the hyperfile, you can see that all the values, all the tables inside, and you can even determine if you want to store it in a single table or multiple table in that case scenario. And we already know that we can do the extract filters over here. We discussed that already in the previous versions, how to add a filter whenever you're extracting the data. And we also have an option like aggregate data for visible dimensions. So selecting this option to aggregate the measures using their default aggregation. Okay, like aggregating the data actually consolidates the rows, and what happens is it actually minimizes the size of your extract, and it will also increase your performance. So whenever you choose aggregate the data, you can also select role updates. It has an option called role updates too, and you can actually specify the timing as well to like specify date like year, month, etc. So to understand it better, what is aggregate data for visible dimensions? So if you have a data where you have a date, where you have some region, and where you have some sales, and if you have a date, same value in a date and same value in the region, but you're seeing some two different values for the same date and region. That means you have two different rows for same date and for same region, but you're getting two different values under each row. If you just click on aggregate data for visible dimensions, what it will do is records with all the same date and region will be aggregated. If you have like for the first record, if you have 100, and the second record, if you have 200, what happens is it will aggregate these two rows, and the final value will be aggregated according, and it will give you 300 over there. That is how you aggregate the data for visible dimensions. Yes. So, and also dates will have been rolled up to the month level, and records with the same region have been aggregated to a single row. This happens when you select the roll up dates to, let's say you have monthly wise data also in that. The date actually has monthly wise data. And if you have different rows for each month, you want to roll up the dates to month. Tableau, what it will do is it will aggregate all the months related to one particular region into one row. If you have two or three rows over there, and Tableau, what it will do is it will aggregate the data according to the month and according to the region. The aggregation will be coming as okay, January, all the east people will be in one row. January, all the south people in one row. Previously, where it was like I have a January 1st, January 2nd, January 3rd, and everything will be aggregated into one row, and it will say only January. That's what its roll updates do. You can select to year, you can select to month over here. This drop down will allow you to aggregate according to whatever. And we have an option to select the sampling of data. We already discussed about how we can sample the data for data validation purposes, and you can choose the rows to extract whenever you're sampling the data as well. So you can extract all rows, or you can extract the top end rows. Tableau first applies any filters and aggregations and then extract the number of rows from the filtered and aggregated results. If you have some filter over here, if you have some aggregation over here, Tableau first applies those two and later come up with your options you gave it here. The number of rows options depend on the data type of source you're extracting from. So it all depends upon the data type, right? So degradation or if you have any dimension aggregating and rolling up to one that particular dimension, it all depends upon that. And whatever you create at the bottom will be based upon the values aggregation side as well. So not all data sources actually support this sampling part. Therefore, you might see the sampling option in the extract dialog box. You might not see that sometimes whenever you work with different data sets, you might not see the sampling option because this will not support all data sources. So any fields that you first hide in this data source page, like hide all unused fields, or in the sheet tab will be excluded from the extract versions button. So to remove any hidden fields, if you already used this field and you already created, but you came back and you're doing it again, you just have to look at if the extract is already hiding some fields, and you have to remove that and create extract sampling part. So in the sheet tab, if you initiate this, you can give this incremental refresh. Incremental refresh means while you're refreshing the data, sometimes it is like you don't have to refresh the entire rows. You just have to refresh the only new added rows. So it will ask you want to refresh the data based upon what sheet. Right now it is full data, that's why it will ask you for the full data. And it will also, if you just select this, okay, full data, if you can give a rows using that particular column, you can do that as well. All the rows will be added to that. This is exactly meaning like you have the past historical data, but you have some new fields added up, and you don't want to extract everything again. You just want to only refresh the data, right? So in this case scenario, you can go with the incremental refresh, which will only brings all the past content will be there, but the new content which is added will be refreshed and it will be extracted. That is what an incremental refresh is. And whenever you want to sample the data, you can actually give a top and rows in say, okay, this is the sheet name you have over here, and you can give some number over here. And if you want to sample the data, you can even sample it by number of rows or the percentage of rows. How it will does the sampling is it will randomly pick up the rows. So Tableau will not go for specific rows, it will just randomly pick up to sampling the data. Sample means it has to have all the data values, right? And it will randomly pick up whatever data it picks up in that sample content, and that will be extracted out. So whenever you're using hide all unused fields, so this only will be used whenever you developed something inside. Let's say I just went through the sheet, did some union. I just used some of the fields in my view, and all the other fields I don't want them. I just only want these content into my data. And if I wanted to extract it after that, I have to come here and just say, okay, hide all unused fields. So this one will basically hide all the other fields which you did not use inside your view. So this will reduce the size of the extract, reduce the rows, columns, everything. So this will improve your performance as well. And the history option over here will show what is the time, what is the action done, how many rows refreshed. It will contain all the history of the refreshed extracted versions. So these are some of the options we have. We wanted to mainly point out how you can use hide all unused fields, and I also wanted to show you the logical tables and the physical tables because we just covered the relationships concept. It is now the time to understand how the data is stored whenever you're extracting, and if you have a relationship over there, how it will store the data if it stores in a single table or multiple tables like that. And hiding all unused, you just have to work upon your views first, then come back and do the extract to use this option. And we have one more option to actually hide the fields, and for that you have to go click on hide all unused fields. So we are now seeing only three columns because we only use these three columns in our view. We did not construct anything, develop anything in the other views as well. Even if you have some data with the other sheets, it will also consider all the other sheets and it will hide according to that. But in this case scenario, I just had three fields. So what Tableau does is it will hide all the other fields. This will come in use where you have so much of columnar data and you wanted to see the main fields which you are using, and you don't want to just search them everywhere every time you just go have to go searching here. You just have to hide the fields so that they will not be seen here. And also, while publishing the content, sensitive content, let's say if you do not want to show some sensitive content to the final user, you can even use this option, hide all unused fields, and publish the data. So what it does at the back end is whenever the final user is downloading some content from your workbook on the server or Tableau Online or Tableau Public, he will not see the entire content of your data set. He will only see whatever fields you used in your view or whatever your entire workbook is built upon. And whatever fields which are not used will not be visible to them. Hiding the fields here will not give the option to download the complete dataset for them whenever you're downloading the cross tab or data at the back. This is one option you can use whenever you're working upon the sensitive data or compliance data, or like PI information like a person identification number, something like that. You can always hide the fields and publish them. To see the fields again, you just have to click on show hidden fields over here. So this will actually show the fields like this. If you see here, the hidden fields are actually grayed out, and whatever fields you used on the view are actually showing up in the black mark, but all the other fields are grayed out. And if I want to use this field in here, it will not allow me to use this field. For you to use this field, what I have to do is I have to click on this arrow mark and say unhide. So then it is available for the analysis, and you can drag whatever date you have over here. But without unhiding, it won't show the field. It will be grayed out like this. Once you did this, hide all fields, it will actually gray out all the content and will say, okay, these are the hidden fields inside. If you want to use that field, just go to the field and say unhide. It will show the field in this black. You can differentiate them in black and gray color. So this is how you actually hide and unhide fields in your inside your dataset. We discussed a great content about how we can extract, we can hide this all fields, and how we can actually reduce the content in the extract to improve the performance. So I will just tell about some general tips whenever you're working with the extracts. You might need to understand some things to remember like that. And I will just give you some general tips. Okay, whenever you save your workbook to preserve the connection to the extract, so after you create an extract, the workbook begins to use the extracted version of your data. That means you already extracted your data, your workbook is using the whatever the content it is already extracted. But however, the connection to that extracted version of your data is not preserved unless you save the workbook. This means if you close the workbook without saving it, the workbook with connection to the original data source, it will not be saved. To actually use the same content again, you might have to save your workbook. That will also preserve the content as well. Even if you extract your data, created a hyperfile, it won't matter if you won't save your data on your personal local system or wherever you want it to be. You have to save your entire workbook to access the extracted content as well. So you can toggle between the sampled content and entire extract. There is an option to toggle between them. So whenever you're working with a larger extract, you might want to create an extract with the sample of data. So you can actually set up while avoiding all these long queries whenever you place something on your data. This is one more case scenario where you might be sampling your data because your data set is too large and it will take time to whenever you're working or placing some fields onto your data. So you can then what you can do is you can then toggle between use the extract with sample data and using the entire data source by selecting the data source on the data menu, data source here, and say use extract because my data is not extracted and it is actually grayed out. So what happens when you extract the data? If you will see use extract ticked check mark will be there. That means the data is actually using the extracted version of it. To toggle between the sample content and the actual content, what you can do is extract your sample data out. You can first extract whatever sample data you want to work with, and if you want to quickly toggle between the entire data set, just uncheck this, you can then it is saying that now you're live, you're connected to your entire data set. At least you're actually live. The extracted version contains a sample set. Like that, you can toggle between the entire data set and the extracted sample data set. And there is one thing you have to remember when you're working with extracts. If you just saved an extract onto your local file system, and there can be a case scenario where you want to directly connect to that extract from your desktop, and this is actually not recommended for some reasons, because the table names will be completely different, and while creating the extract table stored in your extract use a special naming whenever they're extracted for the uniqueness, and there can be a lot of wording part because that will be stored in alphanumeric scenarios, and that extracted version will have a long name. That is a defaultly Tableau creates some name to create the uniqueness. So the tables will be different. So connecting directly to an extracted hyperfile, sorry, extracted version content which is saved in your local system is not recommended. We can do that, but it's actually not recommended. And you cannot refresh the extract. Whenever connecting directly to an extract, Tableau treats that file as a true source, like as opposed to the clone of the underlying data. So it is not possible to relate back to the source data. So you should not refresh the extracted files. You can refresh the workbook files, but you should not go to your extract and refresh the extracted files. And the data model and the relationship will be lost, because the data model and relationship between the tables is stored in the .tds file, but not in the .hyper file. So this information is lost whenever you're connecting to your direct hyper file. Additionally, if you extract using logical table storage, you will not see any references to the original underlying physical tables. So these are some of the reasons why you should not go directly connect to a hyper extracted file. It's always better to connect with the local data set like Excel files. If you have it in local system, you just go connect with them. But if you think that I have to go connect to that extracted file, hyper file, you can do that, but I'm saying it is not recommended. And there will be some case scenarios where you want to remove the extract from the workbook. So to remove an extract from the workbook, okay, I will just show the demo of it directly how to remove the extract. So for that you need the extracted version, right? So I'll just say edit. Okay, I'm just sampling my data based upon some 100 rows, hide all unfilled fields, okay, and I have the extract version, right? So I'm just going to the sheet 3 and save the file. This is the hyper file. It is saving the hyper file. Whenever you say extract, it will save the hyper file. So this is the data I have right now. But there is a scenario, like you have a case scenario where you want to remove the extract. So for that, you have to go to your extract option and say remove. This will throw an error like this because this workbook will no longer reference to the extracted, and the live data connection will be used instead. It's saying that okay, removing this extract will entirely delete your extract and it will be connected back to the live. And you have two options in this: just remove the extract, or remove the extract and delete the extract file also. Removing the extract only removes the extract in your workbook, but if you see here, you can also extract and delete the extracted file wherever it is stored, right? So you can even remove the extract file also. These are two options you see whenever you get this, you have to remove the extract. And if you want to see the history of revisions happen, this is the option you see. When it has happened and what the action it took. It actually took the full refresh, rows refreshed 100, and what is the source. This is the history of extracted versions. Like it will show you all the history of extracted versions and whenever it is extracted, whenever the data is extracted. And there is one more thing. Whenever Tableau loses the connection between, like, if it cannot locate the extract, like, okay, if I just saved my extract, I just saved my file, and for the next use I opened and it is not able to locate the extract. So for that, a window will pop up and like an extract not found because we don't have a case scenario right now. But if you see that kind of window popping up saying that extract not found, you will have four different scenarios to locate the extract, to remove the extract, deactivate the extract, and regenerate the extract. Locating the extract is like you have to locate where you have saved. Basically, Tableau save all the files in the Tableau repository. Selecting this option if the extract exists, but not in the location where Tableau originally saved it. You just have to locate the extract, point it out to that direction where it is located, and you just have to click OK. And Tableau will be able to recognize where it is stored. This is one option, and you can remove the extract and remove the extract file also. You can remove the extract and just connect to the live data source. You can deactivate the extract. This will also use the original data source where the extract is created, and instead of using the extract, it will deactivate the extract and it will use the live sources. And you can regenerate if you want to. You can re-extract again and just connect with the live data source and regenerate the extract again. These are the four options you have when you Tableau is not able to identify where the extract is. And in those case scenarios only you will see this option, otherwise you won't, because that pop-up option will be coming up whenever the Tableau is not able to recognize the extract. It will say, the dialog box will say, okay, extract not found. And in this case scenario, it will generate all these options: locate, remove, deactivate, or regenerate. It will give options to actually point out to the extract again. These are the case scenarios you will go through whenever you're working with different data sets, and we actually took around all the every possible option you might face whenever you're working with the real-time data. These are all the errors, these are all the options, whatever you can call it as. You just went through everything, and if you find a scenario like troubleshooting whenever you're creating extracts, like if you're creating an extract and if it takes long time, depending on the size of your data set, creating extract will take a longer time. However, after you have created data and saved it, your computer performance can improve because you extracted the data out. This will happen for a larger data sets because we're working on Excel right now. But if you just work with the cloud data sources, they can be heavier content, and the extracting of those versions will take lots of time. Then you have to think about how to I have to improvise the performance, how do I have to hide the fields, how do I have to make the less content out of extract, etc. That's why we discussed everything about this one. So if the extract is not created, there can be a case scenario you run the extract for so many hours and the extract will not be created. So if your data set contains a really large number of columns, for example, if your data set has thousands of columns, in some cases, Tableau might not be able to create that extract. So if you encounter problems, consider extracting fewer columns or consider restructuring your data at the backend. There can be a case scenario where the save dialog box does not display, or the extract is not created from a TVWX file. If you follow the procedure to extract the data from a packaged workbook, the save dialog box will not display. Like if you already saved the file into TWBX and it is on your system and you open it again and you're creating the extract again. So the hyperfile saving pop-up box will not appear in this case scenario. When an extract is created from a packaged workbook, let's say TWBX, the extract is automatically stored in the package of files associated with that packaged workbook. So to access the extract file that you created for this packaged workbook, you must have to unpackage the workbook first. That is how you can access the files. But just remember that whenever you're working with the TWBX file where the data is already extracted, you might not see that pop-up box to save the hyper file somewhere because the extract is also already there in the packaged workbook, and it might rewrite the data at the backend. So that's the case scenario over there. And yeah, we discussed entirely on the extract again, and we saw so many options for the extracts what we have. And our next topic is interactivity in the dashboard.